Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet. I got an interesting video coming up here today. We're going to be making a few different kinds of batches of shop-made wood filler. So going to be interesting to see how it works and what's best and all that good stuff. Before we get to that, I've got a couple things I want to talk about. The first thing is on Woodwork Web in the links section. There is a links section. There's a listing for woodworking guilds and clubs. And if your club is not listed, or a woodworking guild or turning guild is not listed there, send me an email and with a little bit of the detail, and I'll get that set up there so that people can find you. And along with that same topic, in these strange times we're living in, a lot of the woodworking guilds are, instead of meeting in halls and so on, they're actually doing what they call Zoom meetings. So that everybody meets online on their own home computer. And I've been to a couple of these. They work fairly well. I'm pretty impressed with them. But if you're looking for a speaker and you're doing some Zoom meetings, and if I'm available, I would be happy to be a sort of a guest speaker at your Zoom meeting. We'll make it fun. We can figure out whatever the topic's going to be later on. It can be an open or it can be a special topic on something, but something different to keep people interested. And this is a perfect time to invite guests in, because now's a good time to be looking for new members for your club. We're always looking for new members for our woodworking clubs, and now's as good a time as any. So you can keep those things in mind. In the meantime, let's get started looking at these different kinds of fillers. My plan is to drill a series of holes on each side. Then I'm going to get some sawdust from each of these materials, and I'll mix it with shellac, wood glue, epoxy, and then we'll be able to compare and see what they look like. And then we'll put a top coat over top of it and see what the final looks like. And then we can compare all of these in one piece of wood. So the first thing I'm going to mix up is the shellac. And I know some of you are going to say, well, it's way too dark. But we actually want whatever we're using here, we always want it to be a little on the dark side anyway. Okay, and there's the wood glue, and it's kind of a putty, got sort of a putty texture to it. And I'll put that in there. Now this last batch that I'm mixing up here is an epoxy fill, and I need to be very careful with it because when it hardens, it's just like rock, so it won't be easy to get off of there. So I need to make sure that I just get it inside the pocket here. Now the last one I'm putting on is this LePages, and it comes in different colors, and I have the palest color, and the reason I'm putting it into this little container here is I want to mix it before I put it into any of these little slots, because I don't know how well it mixes in the, and you can see it's a pretty light putty. Now, the reason that I'm using this is that it says on here that it is stainable and paintable. So even though it's a lighter color, it says it's stainable. So that's really what I want to see, if it really is in fact stainable. So we're going to use this, and we're going to put this in all of the remaining pockets, even in the darker ones. I'm going to use this light stuff because we're going to see how well it stains up. So the whole point of this test is to see how close we can match the woods. That's what we're aiming at here with all these different variables. Now, one common denominator with all of these, it seems like all of them shrunk to a certain degree, and all of them are a little bit below the surface of the wood. And that shouldn't be a problem. I've gone as best I can and leveled them off, or brought them below. Actually, the shellac was the one that did not shrink, so that was good with that. And actually, it sanded down fairly well. I have to say that I'm a bit more impressed with it. We'll see how it does with the dye and the stain test. So anyway, that's the next thing we're going to do. Okay, so there's this stain I'm using, and I've tried to get something as close that I can that's on hand, and I'm not going to get a brush dirty for a little strip like this, so I'm just going to use a rag, and we'll start off with the dye, and we'll just put some of that on. Okay, now it comes time for the top finish, and I'm using Osmo. It's an oil-based finish, and I'm using that because that's what I use. I know a lot of you use varnish, and varnish is just fine. If you like the finish that you get with it and the results, stick with it. Don't change just because I use something different. And the results that I'm going to get here today are going to be very similar to what you will get with whatever you use for your top finish. So I'm just going to carry on here and finish up doing this. Well, let's take a minute and have a look at our results here. And to be honest with you, I'm not really happy with anything here, but let's see what we've got. First of all, we used shellac in the top left corner of all of these, and I can easily put my finger into it. It's very, very soft. I would never recommend shellac as a filler. It's just not strong enough at all. The other thing that's interesting, the wood glue and the epoxy, the color is almost identical in every one of these, every panel. Those two are almost identical. And the last one we used, which was the LePages, and they said it was stainable. And look, it is fairly stainable. It does to a degree. But to their credit, they also have a variety of colors. So, you know, I could have gone to a darker color, but I did want to see how well it would stain up. So all in all, I'm not really thrilled with any of them, but whatever you do, you always want to go a darker color. Have a look at this. So here's a real life example, and a knot that has cracked, and that's pretty normal, and there's a couple things you want to do with that. You might want to fill it, or you probably want to fill it, but you'll also want to stabilize it so that it isn't going to move anymore. And this is what you want to avoid, where you have a light color, and as the wood gets darker, that color in there, that filler in this case, is not going to get any darker. It's going to stand out. And I'm going to show you an example. Now, what this is, and this is fairly new to the market, so it's something that I think we've needed for a long time. This is a CA glue, but it's in a brown color, and it actually matches fairly well. Of course, it's darker, and it's not going to match every wood, but watch this. Now that sort of disappears, and that's what you want. You want to avoid this. because with some fillers, that's what you're going to get. And that wood is still going to get darker over time, and that center filler is not. So no matter what you use for filler, you want to avoid this kind of a scenario at all costs. And see the difference? Well, that concludes my video for today. And you know, this is something I've wanted to do for a long, long time, was compare different fillers and see what they look like with and without different kinds of finishes on them. And remember, the best advice I can always give you is go darker than the wood that you're using rather than lighter, because over time your wood's going to get dark and it'll blend in much better over time. I'm Colin Gannett for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.